What's interesting me a lot lately is how we transfer our weight and how we move. And it applies to pretty much anything that we do, whether it's martial arts or just walking through our day. So I'm going to start uh, thinking about that doing at least a part of cloud hands, which comes from Tai Chi and other uh, various different other Eastern movements. But we're not going, you can do cloud hands where you're transferring to the side and transferring back. Today, I really want us to focus on our weight transfer. So we're going to keep everything quite a bit smaller than we might normally do. I really don't want you to challenge yourself in this movement today. I want you to explore what the movement is telling your body. So the first thing I want you to do is to figure out what's the best stance for you today. We can certainly, if we wanted to, we could challenge ourselves and we could be way, create a really wide stance. But if I create too wide a stance, then I'm falling and I might tip over, or I'm thinking too much about my balance. So start with shoulder width and just move your weight all the way from one foot to the other and feel comfortable in that position, that you're not thinking about your balance. You can stand on one foot, your weight is all the way over one foot, and then you can put your foot down where it was, and your weight is all the way over the other foot, and you don't feel like you're going to tip over, and you have to think about your balance. So find that place. Maybe it's very small. Maybe you need to have a very small stance. That's fine. Maybe it can be, maybe shoulder width feels like it's a little tight and you feel like you're constrained. Then go a little bit bigger, but I don't want to see big wide stances. What I'm interested in here is just that sense that I can move myself from one foot to the other and I feel as though I'm in control the whole time. All right. So once you find your stance that you feel comfortable with for today, what we're going to do is we're going to practice. First, we're going to do this without our hands. So what I want to do is I want to put all of my weight over one foot. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. And then I want to lower myself down so my other foot is touching the floor, but I'm not using it. Okay. Then I want to just start transferring my weight. So now I'm about 75-25. Now I'm 50-50. Now I'm 25 on the side I started and 75. And then finally I'm 100%. And I can check that by lifting my foot up. And again, if I feel like I'm off balance, then make my stance shorter. Right? And so just transfer your weight and notice 50-50 and notice when you get all the way to the other side. Test, see that you're at 100% and you're stable. And then going back. And of course, you could do this as a meditation, but right now I want to focus on how does this feel in my body? Do I have a sense that I'm at 50-50? Or am I here and I think I'm 50-50? So kind of play with it a little bit right now. Right now is a little bit of free play and just explore what it means to transfer your weight as opposed to often, particularly when we're outside of our center, we fall and then we're no longer in charge of our body. So what I really want you to find is that sense of transferring your weight as opposed to falling into your foot. I don't want to fall into it. I want to really place my foot and feel that the transfer is happening. And then I'm completely on the other side. And then transferring back. Okay. So now let's add our hands into this movement because that's part of the balance that will help us. So transfer your weight over one foot, and whichever side that is, put your hands out on that side. Well, the idea with our hands is we're going to our lower hand, I suppose actually it's the one that's sticking out further, is going to scoop across the bottom. And our, in this case, my left foot, so my left hand is going down and my right hand is going across. And I'm going to just have that sort of a feeling. And again, I'm not really interested today in precise technique. What I really want to explore is what does this feel like in my body? So I'm starting here at 100% on my left foot. And as I go across, I want to find that 50-50 place, and I want to have my hands up and down. So I'm not to one side or the other at this point. 50-50, everything is centered. And then as I continue across, then I'm 100% and my hands are reaching out on the other side. And again, this is a lot about exploration. So I don't really care a lot about technique, but if you have a question, feel free to ask. But really what I want you to do is explore, am I at 50-50 and my hands are up and down? And feel what 100% on one side feels like. And then the transferring across. Right, good. So now if we want to, we can move with this. And why don't we do that? We'll take a couple of steps on one side and then just a couple of steps the other way, just to experience what it would be like to move. So the first thing I want is I'm going to bring all of my weight over my left foot, and I'm going to bring my right foot next to my left foot. Then I'm going to transfer my weight to my right foot, reaching out. So now all my weight's on my right foot, and I'm going to just step out. And again, you can challenge yourself, but today I don't want you to. Today I just want you to make a small step so that you can feel that weight transfer, 50-50, and reaching out. Check. Bring your feet together. 50-50. All of my weight's on my right foot. Now I'm going to change direction. So that means I'm not going to move my left foot. It's just going to stay where it is. 50-50. Reaching out to the left. Now I'm going to take a small step. Transfer my weight to that foot. So I don't want to put my foot down and then move my hands. I want to try to transfer my weight with my hands coordinated and transfer my weight to the other side. Then bring my feet together, transfer my weight. Reach out with my right foot, transfer my weight. I can bring my feet together. And I'm going to do a full cycle here so I can go the other direction. Of course, you can take as many steps as you have space for. And when you get to the end, you just make a full circle so you can step out with that foot. Now, sometimes when I'm practicing this and I'm doing it more as a meditation, I get out of sync and I start to move my hands and my feet at the same time. You really want to move, get one movement done before you start the next one. And find that coordination. And we're going to practice another one here in a second. And then you can come back to 50-50. All right. So that's going sideways, and that's transferring our weight sideways. Anybody that is familiar with Shintaito probably knows about flower walking. In some sense, we're transferring our weight forward and back. I'm not so much worried about flower walking today, but I do want to have that sense of how can I walk in a way that I'm transferring my weight as opposed to falling onto my step. A lot of it comes from my center. So if I have my foot out and I lift my weight up, then I kind of fall forward. I don't have to lean, I don't have to do anything. If my foot's out there, I become off balance and I kind of fall forward. So what I want to do now is basically it's based on flower walking. So I'm going to take, and again, we're not challenging ourselves, so we're not taking huge steps today. We're just going to take a small step out in front, and my weight now is all on my left leg, and my heel of my right foot is touching the floor, but it's not holding me up. And I'm just going to transfer my weight into that foot. So now my toes of my left foot are just touching the floor. There's no weight in them. It's all on my right foot. I'm going to let that leg come forward. Again, my heel of my left foot is just touching the floor. And then I'm going to transfer my weight to that foot. And of course, right now we're doing this very slowly. But what's fun is when you're walking down the street or in a store or wherever it's relatively smooth so you don't have to think about the surface, is to notice if you're transferring your weight when you walk or if you are using momentum to move you. And when you get as far forward as you can go, now go backwards. So put your toes down and transfer your weight. So now your weight is on the foot and your heel is just touching. Move your toes, transfer. So ideally, your step is your width of your hips. On this one, you don't want to have a wide stance. And then just go forward another 3 or 4 steps. And if you want, you can change the speed of how you're moving, but really try to stay connected with the transfer of your weight and not using momentum that you're falling forward and you have to catch yourself, but you're actually transferring your weight. And ultimately, there is no right or wrong in this. It's really just exploring what it feels like, getting a sense of that, because we're going to use that a little bit today. All right. How's everybody doing? Any questions? We all happy? All right. Good, good. All right. So if you have a stick, why don't you grab it? If you don't worry about it. I'm going to use this short piece of dowel today. Bill, have you done any sword work?
Excuse me?
Have you done any sword work?
No.
Okay. So to start off with here, I'm going to talk primarily to you, but everybody else obviously is here and they can all listen. When we do Japanese sword, our left hand goes at the bottom of our sword, and typically your pinky finger is either right at the very bottom, or sometimes people have their pinky finger just off the bottom, touching the end. I tend to like to have my pinky finger curled around the very bottom. Your right hand goes about a fifth width above your left hand. When you're using the sense of how your hands are positioned if you point your finger and your thumb, you want them to be pointing perpendicular to your sword. Now, when we're doing sword movement, we don't stick our finger and our thumb out, but this is a good check when you're at the end of a movement. You can just stick out your finger and your thumb and see what your alignment is. Often we get a twist in our wrists in awkward ways. And so going back to this helps us to see, so that at the end of a movement, if we look and we say, oh, well, my fingers are going sideways, then we know that we don't quite have the right grip on our sword. The details of that are not strictly important, but I just want you to get a feeling for what it feels like to have something in your hands. If you want to, while we're doing the next movements, you're welcome to keep your stick in your hand. In Shintaido, there are two forms of sword movement. There's Kukajyo movements and there's Jisen movements. And Kukajyo movements are a little bit different in that the energies tend to be more aligned with Tenso and Shoko in a very pointing sense, that we point up and we point forward when we're doing Kukajyo. When we're doing Jisen, we don't point up with the tip of our sword, we point up with our knuckles. So everything that we're doing is based on where our knuckles are. Let's see. So if I have my sword over my head, my knuckles are up. And then at the end of my cut, I'm really following the same kind of an arc, but the angle of my sword is always more or less 90 degrees to my hand, which is different. So that's more of a Jisen arrangement, which is more typical to sword work in general. The Kukajyo movements are much more specific to Shintaido. All right, so what do we have? In sword, we have basically two movements. One type of a cut is called kirikomi, and it's cutting by pushing. The other cut we have is kiriharai, which is cutting by pulling. And most people that I talk to don't have a clear sense in their head what these mean. We have some images of cutting vegetables, and I don't know how much that translates well to understanding what we say when we're saying these two different types of cuts. Basically, predominantly what we're doing, in no matter what type of cut we're doing, we're thinking about cutting across an angle. Our blade angle is from our neck, our own neck, to our own hip. If we're cutting a horizontal cut, then we're thinking about cutting across the abdomen. If we're cutting up, it's the exact opposite. We're going from our own hip to our own neck. So a cut is very tight. It's not out here. It's almost up and down, because when you think about that line, it's very close. So if I'm cutting, I'm coming at an angle that's just inside my own body. I'm coming essentially from my own shoulder across to my own hip. So that's how tight a Jisen cut is going to happen. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time and just explore those cuts. We can do it. If you want to do it with a stick in your hand, you're welcome. If you want to do it empty hand, you can do that as well. For empty hand, I'm going to hold my hands pretty much in the position as if I had a stick in my hands. And I'm going to focus on my little finger side, which is the underside of my arm. And that's my cutting edge. So when I'm cutting down, that's my sense of cutting edge. It can be helpful to have empty hands sometimes, because I can use my fingertips to tell me if my positioning is good, right? Because anywhere, once I close my hand around a stick, then that's the same orientation. If I'm over my head and I close my hand, that's the same orientation I would have. So using an empty hand is sometimes very instructive to tell us how our sword is moving. In that same sense of transferring our weight, I want to just practice moving forward and moving back with the idea of doing sword cuts. All of a sword cut comes from our own center. So it's not a muscle. We don't use muscle when we're cutting down. We don't cut down using muscle. I'm going to cut that thing. All I have to do is drop my center and I'll cut down. But what's important is that my foot is moving at the same time that my sword is coming down. And so it's that same sense of moving, transferring my weight forward. So I'm just transferring my weight forward. So what I want to practice is, the first cut I want to practice is kiri harai, which is cutting by pulling, because that's the easier cut to really practice. So as we come up, our feet will always be even, and then we're going to take a step forward and cut down. And we're going to cut all the way through to our own hip. At this point, then I'm going to come up, I'm going to bring my feet together, and I'm going to cut down on the other side. Now, which side? People often are like, well, which side do I cut to? Always cut away from the foot that's sticking out in front. So I don't want to cut this way. I might cut myself. I want always to cut to the hip that's opposite the foot that's sticking out. So if I step to my right, my cut is going to my left hip. And my feet come up and my sword comes up. Then I'm going to step forward and I'm cutting on the other side now. So my left foot went forward. So I'm cutting to my right hip. All right. So give yourself a little bit of space and just really think about that sense of coming up and then falling forward in some sense, but it's a controlled fall because I'm transferring my weight forward. Then I want to lift up and transfer my weight forward. Weight up and transfer my weight forward. When you're making your cut, just always think about extension. You want to try to keep your arms not rigid, but straight and extending out as far as your energy will reach. So that's one thing I personally like in sword practice, is that with a stick in my hands, I have a sense of a greater extension than just my hands. So that's one thing that I like in sword practice. All right, now I'm going to add a slight wrinkle to what we're doing, which is just that right now, after our cut, our hands are coming up and we're putting all of our weight on the foot that's coming up. So in this case, again, I'm going to step forward with my right foot. As I bring my left foot up next to my right foot, I want you to keep all your weight on your right foot. I don't want your weight to be on your left foot, but I want it to be even. Then I want you to transfer your weight forward as you cut down. Same thing on the other side. As it comes up, I don't want any weight on that foot. And then I want you to transfer your weight forward as you cut down. Just feel that sense of transfer and then coming up and transfer. We're going to give this a count. So cut is 1, feet together, but all of your weight on your first side. is 2, and then stepping forward is 3. Coming up is 4. Stepping forward is 5. Right, so it'll all make sense. Maybe not today, but it will make sense by next week. So as we're doing it, each knee, feet together, sun, step and cut, she, feet together, sword up, go, step and cut. So here I'm 50-50. My feet are apart.
Okay.
Just finished my cut, I'm 50-50. Now I'm transferring my weight forward, so I'm 100% on my, in this case, my right leg. And then as I cut forward, after my cut, I'm 50-50.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So what I want to do is get out of the habit of when my hands come up that I'm 50-50 here. I want you to be 100% on whichever leg you came up on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't make that clear. Yeah, so 50-50 is at the cut. So after I've cut, I'm 50-50. Then I
Okay.
come up, I'm 100. Then after the cut, I'm 50-50. All right, so now let's start with some of the footwork that is in Shoda no Kata. So the first piece of footwork that we're going to do today, it's probably the only one we do today. I need to turn my body 90 degrees. I'm facing forward. I need to turn so I'm facing 90 degrees. Today, I don't care which way you go. I will tell you which foot I'm using. Basically, what I want to do first is I'm going to shift and turn my right foot out in the direction I'm going. Then I'm going to come up. And again, this is one of those places now I want to have 100% on my right foot. And then I'm going to step forward with my left foot and be 50-50.
Okay.
Let's just do that part again. So I'm facing forward. I'm going to turn my right foot out. I'm going to transfer my weight 100% and then step forward with my left foot. And I'll do that one more time. So I'm going to turn my right foot out, transfer my weight, step through with my left foot. Now I'm here, I'm facing this direction. I actually want to be facing the other way. So now I'm going to come back. Again, my weight is 100% on my right foot. And I'm going to put my weight now on 50-50 on my, I'm facing to my original forward. Turn. Let's see, I have to face forward. Then shift, and I'm going to turn my left foot out. Come up 100% on my left foot and step out with my right foot. 50-50. Come back to my left foot. Come back to facing forward. So my body is facing forward, my feet are facing forward. Then I'm going to turn to my right. 100% on my right foot and step out with my left. Come back, 100% on my right foot. Come back to facing my original position. Turn out on my left. Come up 100% on my left foot and then step out 50-50. Back, face forward, turn to the right, up, step. The idea is that I'm facing forward, I'm going to turn my foot out, and then I'm going to transfer my weight to that foot. and then step through. Then transfer my weight back. Come back to my starting position, get everything oriented forward, and then transfer to the other side. So it's the same idea. The transfer that we did when we were doing cloud hands, where I was transferring and my whole body was straight. It's really the same feeling.
Yes.
It's just when is it 100 and when is it 50-50?
Yes. Okay. Cool.
So I'm 50-50 when I start. Transfer, and in some sense, I mean, if you're thinking about it in a Tai Chi sense, I have to actually put my weight over onto my left foot so that I can move my right foot. Then I transfer my weight to my right foot. Then I transfer my weight to my left foot. Transfer my weight. Transfer. Transfer. 50-50. What I want us to avoid is here putting I don't want to be 50-50 after I've turned. I don't want to be 50-50 until I've taken that step. But this point is important that we have a pause there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a little pause here, but I don't want to put my weight down. I just want to be there.